educate y'all. All right, we are back on. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Moore. Just a second. That was so anticlimactic. All right, I'll get it set up for you.
Maybe I couldn't see it over there. Maybe
Okay,
I should have
I'll
it
get you the plug. If anything, if you have any like technical questions, I can answer it. I'll sit here. I'm really interested in it. Oh, you can just use your plug. How about that?
That'd be fine.
That way we don't have to run cables.
Does that work like that?
It doesn't? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
Here, we can watch and help monitor questions and stay.
Well, I don't need this right in front of my face like this.
Okay.
It's a little invasive.
Hotline. Boy, this is really, we've got it down wired. Okay, maybe start talking and see if everybody can hear.
All right. This is Steve Moore reporting from his chair. This is where I spend 63% of my time.
This is off air.
Really?
Yeah,
Totally.
you don't
Hey,
have to
hey,
do when that
hey.
happens.
I do.
Check. Let's crank this up.
Seemed like it was on. Everything was so tight, the transition. It's tight.
My dad's looking at an old version of the website. It does seem to be on now.
That happens. I get lost.
All right, we're gonna
I
make
get
it.
lost in translation.
We're gonna make it easier for you to hear. Oh yeah, this is way down. Hey. Check. Oh, that must have been. That was at rock show level. Hello.
No, not my age.
Okay. That's not it. There it is. Okay.
Wow, we got some viewers.
Okay. All right. All right. Why don't you give them a little talk and see?
Set up a rocking chair back there for you, Chad, if you want it.
Okay.
You guys can take that other seat.
I unplugged this just to plug that, but there's a vacant plug. I just couldn't. It just came out.
Okay.
So, are we on?
Yeah.
Should I begin my presentation?
Let's just.
Hey, Liz. Do you want? Are you hanging out or up there? You want to be down here or? Either way.
How's he sound, you guys?
How do I sound?
He looks great.
Yeah. "24 guests."
Sex appeal.
Yeah, totally. All ex-girlfriends. I know how it is, dude.
I've got a few ex-boyfriends. Okay.
There you go.
I spent a few years in the Army.
There you go. Can you
That's
guys hear
not
him
true.
okay?
I'm just kidding. I did not spend any time in the Army.
Can you guys hear him okay? All right. Let's turn it over. Seminar on aging.
Seminar on aging, that's what we're calling it, but that's really, I don't have any idea what I'm going to be talking about, except the idea that I think I have a lot of respect for what is going on here with Hippie Fiasco, and I thought I was really impressed by Elizabeth's presentation the other night about sadness, and so I thought I could contribute something to this cause, as it were, and I was born in 1947, and none of you can say that, I'll bet. And if you can, good on you. So I've been doing this a long time, been watching a lot of stuff pass by. I'm a retired school teacher. And the thing I liked about teaching, among other things, was watching people. And I watched young people pass through my life, and fortunately, a lot of them are still around in some way or another. And so I've been an observer of human beings, and I've always been fascinated by biology and animals, and animals make sense to me. I watch the squirrels and the birds, and everything they do makes a certain uh, Darwinian sense to me, but a lot of things people do don't make a damn bit of sense to me, and I've always been fascinated by that. So I guess I could have been a psychology major, but then that would have given me a lot more words to confuse you with. So I think I'm just happier being who I am right now. But there are issues here. There are real issues with being 63 and not 36 or not whatever you are. But you have the same issues at your age. Like if you're 40 and have two kids and don't have a life. But the difference is I've been there. I understand that too. So I do have a little bit of stuff here to share with you. I've watched three really close friends. Uh, you could call them drinking buddies, but that would be an understatement. They were close friends. I've watched them pass by me, and I've lost them. I lost my brother, and I lost my boy's wife. So I lost these people, watched them move away from where I am, and still I'm here. So that's something you can talk about because, like my mom said one day, I visited her a year or so ago, and they were all dressed up. And they were just walking in the door, and she said, "Seems like all we do is go to funerals." And I thought that was profound to me at that time. I just was thinking, my goodness, if you're lucky enough to live long enough, all kinds of shit happens to you. It's like James Dean, "Oh, you lucky mother." I'm not sure where we are with that. I'm not trying to be profound here tonight. When I was thinking about the guys driving over here, I said, the one thing I don't want to be tonight is profound, but I do want to be totally honest with you. So we'll go from there. And losing those guys, losing those close friends, leaves me empty now. And so I could be totally empty if that was all I had. But I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed with those children that you're giving all your time to and don't think even like you. Keep on doing it. Be sincere. Be reasonable. And they'll be there for you. I've been lucky in that area. I guess one thing about it is I'm thinking the other thing I want to talk about in terms of aging, the process. I'm 63, and every day there are things that have come up that suggest I can't do what I used to do. it's just the way it is. You know, I was once a pretty good ball player, and you know, I couldn't even go out on the baseball field right now without looking like an idiot. So, you know, I gave that up. So as you get older, as you go along, as you move along, and this is not just at 63. You know, as you well know, probably even at your age, you probably can't do some of the shit you used to do, and that's just, I mean, it's just that process of aging involves loss. I guess that's one of the things I wanted to say. And it involves how you do deal with loss, how you deal with what you can't do at this time in your life that you used to be able to do. And I think that's a big issue. I see it every day. I'm around some older people now, and I see what they're going through, and I talk to my friends, and there's a whole lot of that sense of loss. And how you deal with it is profound in terms of how you age. Because what we're really talking about is aging graciously. And people can do it. I see those people all the time. They still have that twinkle in their eye. And I guess that's what I was talking about to myself, was about how you keep that twinkle in your eye, even though you're pretty worthless in terms of what you used to be, but not in terms of who you are. And that's the thing about the loss part that I've come up with. I found out a while back that I lost a significant portion of my eyesight in my left eye. Had no idea I had glaucoma. Just nailed me. And I went home and got depressed for a good solid 5 days, thinking, I can't play racquetball, I can't play tennis, I can't do what I wanted to do. And I'm just not going to be able to be who I want to be. And went through that depression, and then came out the other side was, okay, you can't do that, but what can you do? And can you compensate for what you lost by doing other things? And so I guess one of the things I want to say about aging, it's an act of compromise. It's an act of understanding your limitations and trying to recognize those but not be limited by them. And it's the idea that you have to emphasize the things that on this given day you can do that are positive and that could help someone, and that you can be in what you can do. And if you do that, it kind of fills up your day, because there's still a lot of shit you can do. And that was the thing that came out of my latest physical crisis. I'll have another one next week, and I might not handle it nearly as well. But for now, it's all good. Well, it's not all good. It's a lot of shitty shit. Yeah, a lot of stuff that's not really good. But you know what I mean? Any questions?
Hillary D says she loves you and to tell you that. We have an interesting situation here with the with Hippie Fiasco, because this is the most disproportionate I've ever seen it of lurkers to creepers.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And we got like 23 lurkers and 6 creepers. In other words, the creepers are the ones that communicate with us.
Right.
So a lot
the
of
lurkers are my friends
of
on
yours
Facebook that wanted to see how revealing I would be, because I put it on my Facebook page.
Don't be afraid to log in and participate and talk with us here.
Well,
And,
yeah, that would be cool. But go ahead and lurk. I'm just well, first of all, let me tell you about Hillary. I think she's just beautiful. And it's part of what I'm talking about with my aging process, is that I have analyzed all of my friends and all of my relationships And I have decided in this year of retirement to choose who I want to love and look at them as who they're trying to be in the world and not be tucked into some. I played baseball with him in '64. That don't mean anything. What it means is I watch you in your life and I love the way you live it and I choose to love you. And that's why Hillary and I love each other.
Right.
Yeah, I chose her because of who she is, not because of anything else. And I couldn't have done that when I was younger. I couldn't have made that call. I couldn't have been free of all the other bullshit that's out there.
Right.
But Hillary knows that. She knows I just love her.
Right.
It's real simple.
Right. Right.
It's not hard.
It's kind of a rad thing when you can get to that spot and really to the spot where you actually have the ability to choose who you surround yourself with, and you don't have to, for whatever social reason it is, you don't have to, whether it's work or some sort of like social group of friends or whatever. I tried to do that at New Year's 2 years ago with my Facebook. Now, I mean, it sounds funny,
Right.
but I actually made a conscious decision, and it had a lot to do with a friendship of mine that I felt totally dissatisfied with, and yet I felt like I needed to be in that relationship just because of the circles that we were in. And I said, you know what, fuck this. I'm cutting off. I'm going on my Facebook. I cut like down to a third maybe of all my friends. And then as the year progressed and the whole original hippie fiasco thing started happening, and all of a sudden then I wanted to have people on there so I could contact. Now I have to, it's ridiculous, and I just decided that people on Facebook aren't my friend circle. But I had that the exact thing you're talking about where I felt like I was gonna make that decision, but then I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well,
But it's kind of
it's a tough call because I've been wrong so many times because I have had mistakes where I thought people were being my friend for the wrong reasons, and then I realized later they were being my friend in spite of the right reasons. I mean, they were giving me a lot more credit than I was due. So, I make mistakes with that, but I'm not in the process. I think the thing I'm thinking is I'm not trying to eliminate anyone. I mean, I love the center fielder I played ball with back in the '60s, and man, he's a great teammate, and he's a pretty good delegate, but he's a little Republican. But I still think he's great. So I don't want to give up that past. I don't want to give up that past, but I don't want that to be the basis of the relationship. And for me, I look at what I've been doing in the last few years. You got to do a little bit more than just know me from '65. You got to do a little bit more than that. And
anything based on the past as its only motive for existence.
Well, I have really close friends that come out of the past, but they're still in the present. But you have to. I mean, one of my most beautiful poems was with. It was the shortest poem I ever wrote, but I think it's one of the most beautiful poems I ever wrote. Is just I'm going to read a poem to you now. Love is where you spend it, and it's real easy. It's real easy. Where are you spending your time? Who are you thinking about? And if you see me and you think you know me from '65, sorry, you just don't get it. You don't know anything about me. But if you saw me in the food line yesterday and we said something, we got something to hang on to there. But and there's some friends that no matter what, and you don't see them for 20 years, and they're still with you. There's a vibe there that was always there and always is there, and that's a beautiful thing. But I'm not going to pretend the vibe's there if you haven't fucking called me in 20 months, 20 years. I mean, I'm not going to depend on that vibe. If it's there and it happens again in a bar in Tulsa, that's fine. But I'm not going to be thinking about it because you haven't spent any time with me.
Right.
So what I'm doing right now in terms of Hillary is I'm choosing to give her my time if she wants it, but I ain't choosing to demand any of her time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's the luxury of being 63. I don't need her. I love her, but I don't need her. And that's important to her, I'm sure.
See, also, that's a really interesting thing that you talk about 20 years with, you know, you can go 20 years or whatever, a significant amount of time. You know, it's hard for me to say 20 years because, you know,
I know it. You
I
don't.
have not known very few people 20. Well, I guess that's not totally true. Now, college friends I've known 20 years now. Jesus. but
20 years is easy for me to flip around.
right. But you know, any substantial amount of time, if you're separated by geography or whatever, that's, you know, like the whole reason why I made that decision, what I was talking about, was I was tripping out on all these friends that are like 2 fucking miles from my house. We're connected by the internet. We all have cell phones. We all talk for free, and yet I don't hear hide nor hair, see them ever, unless we're out, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're like my friend. And it's not like, I mean, you know, I live in San Francisco. Nobody works. It's not like they're at their fucking job. You know? You know what I'm saying?
I'm with
You know,
you.
but then there are people.
I hear you.
There are people.
He's
okay,
retired. That's like San Francisco in a nutshell.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all retired. in San
Every
Francisco.
morning I leave my heart.
But you know, if you know, but then I feel like I'm connected so much more with people sometimes that live further away, yet I can't see them. I mean, now, you know, they can see me or Nathan or Les through the thing, or you know. But you know, up until like a month and a half ago, it was just telephone and pictures on the Facebook. But you know, it trips me out that people can be so close and not want to give any time.
Right.
You know, and I can name a list of people that
Sure.
have that problem.
You know, and I think that's just a part of our society, and it's a problem, but I don't know, maybe it always was a problem. You would think some of those problems would be solved by our social communications things that we've got going on right now. You'd think it would be better, but I don't know that it's better.
Well, that's another funny thing about like social networking and like Facebook is that you have all these friends on there and they think that they know you. So it's like,
Oh, yeah.
Or it goes the other way too.
yeah. So it's like, you know, like,
Yeah, they think they know you.
God, I don't remember the last time I've commented on a photo of Chad's or something on Facebook or like posted on his wall or something like that.
Probably like 2 days ago.
But not true. But, you know, I see you every day and that's like a totally different relationship.
Well, I said, I was recently thinking that if my life has 10 chapters, Nathan knows 6. You know, you know 0.4. You know 0.4. My best friends, Steve Talley, Joe McHugh, they know 5, 6, maybe 7 to say, you know, but nobody knows me. You know, they really don't. I mean, there's people that want to know me, and that's a beautiful thing, but I mean, I've got chapters you wouldn't believe.
Right.
But I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that we're all like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's places inside of Nathan that I have never glimpsed. And I think I know him very, very well. I think I know probably 6 of his chapters. But there are places, you know, for lots of reasons that I've never seen. And that High Sierra was a good example of that.
Right.
That was a beautiful moment for me. I went out there, you know, Stanton boy, hadn't been out of town. I'd been to Fishersville.
Oh, Jesus.
I hadn't even
And
been.
that was
I
your
hadn't been to
first time out of
Sheets.
town.
I hadn't even fucking been to Sheets.
Wow.
But I was ended up in High Sierra with Mike Bullock and
That
and
explains the
Angie,
look
and
in
it
your
was a
eye.
beautiful
I saw it
night.
there.
It was a beautiful time, and I was just on all kinds of chemicals that were self-induced, and a couple that were given to me. But most of it was just the idea that I was in this new world But mainly what I saw was a new son, a son that was appreciated on a totally different level than what he is known of in his own hometown.
It kind of went the other way for us because we'd always heard about you. I'm sure, you'd heard about High Sierra and all that, but we got to see you, and that was the first step of a bridge that ended us up over here. You know what I mean? It was a
Sure.
chapter that we only could be told about and not read, or whatever.
I was trying not to be me, but it was hard. I was trying to be cooler. Yeah. But that was magical. But that's exactly what we're talking about. I didn't know that side of my son. I mean, when I sat in the back of that golf cart and saw him take off, I saw, oh my God, this is scary. This guy's out of control. And he was thriving on it. He was thriving on being out of control. Well, that's just not my nature. I'm very much a control freak. So it was enlightening.
So Mike's on here actually. Chops a lot.
Yep, chops a lot.
He says, "Do you believe in developmental tasks to be mastered / experienced at different stages / ages of life? If so, what are the developmental tasks you face?"
I need him to tell me a little. I don't know what he means by developmental tasks. Really, developmental tasks. That's a pretty technical term for something.
Mike, if you could clarify that question. He says a child's ability to separate from his or her mother is like a developmental task. Like each life has a stage of development, something you have to master to move on.
I'm not sure where he wants to go with that, but here's one. For example, sex is a real interesting topic that I am profoundly not intelligent enough or experienced enough to talk about. But I would say that developmental tasks. There's a point. There's a early point in your life where sex is important because of your hormones that say sex is important. It's sex for the sake of sex. And then there's a developmental level where you think in terms of sex, in terms of your partner and procreating. And then there's but then where do you go with that? Where do you go with sex after that?
Mm-hmm.
And that in terms of aging, that's something I've been very curious about with my own life in terms of how I've dealt with my sexual needs. And I come to the conclusion that quite often, developmentally, I'm not sure where I want to go with that, except that it changes and has changed and is no longer a priority that it was earlier. So I've developmentally changed my theories on sex all along to the point where right now I would rather love someone without sex until I'm committed to them. In other words, I'm not playing around.
Right.
And if I'm with you, I'm with you, and yeah, but I'm not planning on being with you. But I'm going to tell you that, and I'm not going to try to just screw you and then say I screwed you and then leave. I don't play that way. So,
Like a tail feather wants to know if you think that's different for boys and girls.
Oh, definitely. I think the process is totally different for boys and girls. Boys, I think that's a big problem for men is sexual conquest and that issue of doing that, where I don't think women might go through phases of wanting to have some sexual conquest, but I think women tend to think of sex in a different way and think of it as more of a permanent thing, and not that they don't want to enjoy it, but they want to do it in the right way.
Right.
For men, there is a tendency that, maybe I'm generalizing too much, but men just want to fuck. And I don't think women just want to get fucked. I think women want to have a process there.
Spankney says, as a woman in her later 40s, sex is less of a priority now than 20 years ago, which is actually giving some credence to Chad's theories on relationships. Is that maybe that's why Chad likes younger ladies?
Hi, Mom.
So I guess the rest of the night we'll just talk about sex.
You want to do the getting laid program? You can have it. I'd like to get some sleep. I've been getting laid all week.
Chad's getting old.
Yep.
Can't stay up that late anymore.
But there are lots of things we could talk about getting old. Because even if you're not getting old, your parents are. And so you're dealing with it. And, yeah, I'm not going to be unique in saying so are you. And it's going to happen to you, too. So it's just something we all have to deal with. But
So let's go back just for a second to Chop Slot's question, because I think what he was sort of wondering is that, like, you know, at every stage in life, there's something that you need to learn to keep going or something. If that makes sense, like his example was a child separating from his mom. I wonder if he could give Chops. Can you give an example of a developmental thing that happens in your 40s? I now, as I'm thinking about it more, I can see why sex was like the obvious.
Well, I would think that maybe something that would happen in your 40s is, you know, like having your own kids and watching, like letting them go, right?
Right.
It kind of turns over.
Right.
Does that mean Nathan and I are not getting older, or we're aging faster because we don't have kids? What does that mean for us? Are we? Because I was gonna say something similar to those lines. I feel like, I mean, obviously we're all getting older. I mean, I can tell you just personally, like, I just thought about it sitting down, finishing a cigarette out front, just walking in here 10 minutes ago. Whatever. I sat down, I was like, oh, you know, like super hurting, like physically or whatever, you know, for just being up all day or whatever. But I feel like, I mean, at least we're playing around like we're, you know, 20 years
Right.
old, running around like a bunch of little kids. And, you know, it's sort of like not focusing in on that. So I'm super enjoying what you're talking about, because it's kind of putting me back in my regular
We
shoes.
got more input here. Jane Custer says, There's three comments. I'll say them all before we talk. Jane Custer says, I am 6 years older than my husband, and he could care less about sex. I have learned, quote unquote, to live without it, but I miss the tenderness of being loved. Chopslot says, mid-age, seeks accomplishments / achievements, family, career, civic. What is my mark? Pluck a Tail Feather says, I think that the books say in your 40s is time to put something into the world, whether it's children or production or music. Chopslot elaborates, says, am I leaving a mark? Is leaving a mark just about your ego? That's getting more complicated, but I think his elaboration is that then in your 40s you're putting something back into the world, you're having kids or your career or something like that. Like these are all stages from child to having children of your own. What is the rites of passage of your age at the moment?
well, yeah, I think what he's talking about is a retirement seminar too. This is the first year I haven't worked at all, and I've always been a school teacher, so I've always had that role on the top of my head that I didn't have to really do much else to help society because I was a public school teacher, you know, and I was paying my dues and I wasn't getting paid enough and I was doing a good job. So that gave me a free ride for a long time. And now, that's what happens in terms of retirement, or at this point, you don't have that. I'm not giving back. So what do I do, and how do I? And I'm in the process of doing that. And I've come up with some unique ways of giving back. But I'm still in that process. But
But is that because you're still stuck in the mindset of your previous thing, maybe? Like, and maybe your burden is radically different than you even know it to be, but you're still measuring it by what you're.
No, I don't have that burden.
Because unfortunately, you should be maybe receiving more. And I mean, our culture is weird about people that aren't producing.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess what you do is look around and say, do I need it or can I give it? I'm still very rich in what I can give.
Right.
And I don't have a lot of needs beyond what I'm already getting. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a process of what happens. When it happens, wherein you will have to come to the nursing home and see me, I'm not going to feel guilty about that. That's just the process.
Right.
But right now, I'm healthy enough to do stuff. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. But yeah, I don't feel, in terms of the classroom, for instance, I haven't missed it a minute. I thought I would miss it a lot, but it was so structured, and I had to be so organized. None of these are me. I had to grade papers, and I had to average grades, and I had to write comments about these people. I don't. That's not me. I realize more that I'm freed up in so many ways that I can do some of these things without giving up who I really am. That I'm not missing that at all. But I'm very unique. I mean, this is just my unique setting. Not everybody's like that. I understand.
Right.
So I mean, that's just where I am right now. But I think there's nothing wrong with a human being wanting to give back to the community. I mean, I think that's a natural process, and I see that in the volunteering I'm around, and I see the people that are doing it, and I see some of them doing it for the wrong reason. Basically, I think what Mike's getting at, some people are just trying to justify their existence, or they're trying to assuage some guilt for the shit they've made their money on and all that stuff. Well, I'm not really doing that.
Right.
I feel like what I do because I want to do it. But there's no doubt that part of the reason I'm doing it is it makes me feel better about myself. Honest, right up front. I'm going taking these meals to these people because it makes me feel better. It's not because I'm helping them. I'm helping myself.
Right.
And that's just the way that is. But everybody's doing that. It's amazing to me how many people are so cool about it. How many people, you don't realize how many people are volunteering and doing all these good things and nobody knows about it. It's another part of another chapter you don't know. Somebody was telling me about one of these guys in town who's a little up, high white collar lawyer, and I always thought he was a jerk. And then I found out how much time he was spent with the Salvation Army. I didn't know that.
Right.
So
It goes back to saying that you don't really know a person.
no,
Right.
no, you really don't. You shouldn't be passing those judgments.
I always consider them, something I've often said is that one reason I'm glad I'm an artist is if I was an athlete, you're inevitably are going to have that point about 10 years into your career where physically you start to lose your game. And I was thinking that, your body's you would give out, but as an artist, seems like as long as if you stay sane, you can improve until the day you die. Do you think that's true?
There was a great bit on CBS tonight on the 6 o'clock news about Paul Simon just turning 70. It was exactly what you're saying.
Really?
He's saying he's got a new album out. He said, I'm feeling better than ever about that process.
Right.
And he gave a whole lot of credit to Edie Brickell, which I think is probably justified.
She's getting back into music.
Just
by
his
the way.
personal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he gave her credit.
Are they still together?
Yeah.
Ah.
Well,
Have you heard Paul Simon's, not the not the one he just put out, but the album he put out before that. I think it's like 03 or something. It's called
There was one.
Surprise.
There was one a while back that I got out of the library and listened to, and there was like two great songs on it. The rest of them were just garbage. And he did a musical that was
That flopped.
Right.
that was just garbage.
Well,
Yeah.
So I mean,
The
no
album-
no offense to Paul. I mean,
Right.
I have had some bad days on the racquetball court, but it was garbage.
The album that I'm speaking of, I bring it up because in his songs you can hear him coming to terms with aging
Right.
and the fact that he is getting older and
Yeah,
like,
that's a bit.
like one of the lines that sticks out is like who's gonna love you when your looks are gone. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like and
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Some big
totally
albums,
that's a
man.
totally big issue. I talk about the movie stars that just disappear because
Right.
they're still out there. Johnny Carson, is he dead? No, but you don't want to see him.
Right.
Nobody.
There's
He
a
doesn't.
lot of them that disappear.
Yeah, they all disappear. Well, that's not true, but the ones that don't are classic characters. Like Katharine Hepburn looked old when she was 23.
Mm-hmm.
She could do it. She could pull it off. She just had something going on that wasn't, that young physical beauty.
Mm-hmm.
She had a power in her eyes. But, when you get old like I am, you're not that good looking. That's the way it is. So you better have something else going on.
That sort of ties into the question Chopslot just asked. What have you learned about ego as you have aged?
Oh, wow. Well, I think you have to build your ego on rocks instead of sand. Uh, I've built my ego on. If I was to sit here and man, Mike, you really put me on the spot here. If I was to tell you straight up what I've built my ego on, it's my children, my students, my friends, my athletic ability. And then when I look at it now at 63, I think every day I add up the number of people who love me. And if I still have a whole bunch of people loving me, I'll get on up. And I'll be honest with you, Facebook's been beautiful for that for me. I don't know what Facebook is to anybody else, but for me, it's a chance to rejoin the idea that you're still out there and you still care about me. I don't give a shit about the rest of it, but you're still out there and you still care about me, and that'll get me going another day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need much more than that.
Spankney wants to know, is it ego or self-esteem, or is there a difference?
That's a good question.
Self-esteem is important for you to have in terms of the way you approach your world and the way you feel about yourself. Ego is just who you're trying to be every moment of the day. Ego is what you're thinking you are and what you're trying to be. So they're very definitely tied at the knot, but they're not quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
I can do things. I got beat today in tennis, 7-11. But the lady who beat me, I taught her how to beat me. So she makes this beautiful shot, and I miss it. And I'm saying, man, I have never enjoyed getting my ass beat more than that shot right there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Jane Custer says, I love, all caps, following you on Facebook, Steve. Wish I was there to participate in this dialogue. Well, you are here, and you are participating.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Hippie
Jane.
Fiasco is trying to prove that nothing's virtual anymore, that we all really exist.
I have a kind of question. What what are your thoughts on feeling old as opposed to actually being old, like aging, like I know that I feel old a lot of the time. Like even in my body, I feel a lot older than normal 20 something year olds I think should. And I wonder if that's just, I don't know, I don't know. I have, no, I just,
Because your body hurts? Is it like discomfort, or is it like actually like wisdom or pain, or?
it's
Is that your
more,
is that a battery? What is that? Okay, stole one of the computers.
I don't know what it is. Not like my, yeah, like, I would say there's some level of like pain that goes into it. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking about like the psychology of getting old, becoming older, and what
Well,
that.
I would. I've always noticed that I do believe that aging obviously is a chronological thing that happens to everybody, but I have seen friends get old before my eyes, and I think it's an attitudinal thing. Uh, like my mom, she's not old, um, because just because of the way she views the world. So I think a lot of that is psychological, and a lot of it has to do with giving up, or and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about what can you do and what can't you do. Because, like you were saying with an athlete, if you put all of your eggs in the being the star football player basket, what are you going to do at 32?
Right.
And nobody talks to people about that. That's the kind of stuff nobody ever talks about in terms of aging. What do you do when that's over? What do you do when you're not a songwriter anymore? And for most of us, it's just scary.
I don't. I don't hit an age like 32 like a basketball player does.
No, but
What is Paul Simon going to do when he's not a songwriter
well, see
anymore?
now, and you're arguing your point, which I'm not going to argue with because it's a good point.
Right.
But I'm just saying that for most scenarios, and that's why people have trouble with giving up their careers, because who are you after that?
Right.
And but if you put all of your ideas about being old, I don't know. We all have to come to grips with that definition of that. Um, because it's different for everybody.
Right.
Um, I would look at you and say you in terms of being old. Well, I see you as an old soul. That's maybe a trite term, but I believe that. There are some people that are old when they're 15. And I've taught them, and I know who they are, and I could call them out. And there are some people that don't ever get old. Um, in terms of wisdom, in terms of seeing things. And that's part of it. Those people that just run rambunctiously through life and never think about it will wake up at some point and say, oh my God, I'm old. You will never reach that point because you've been thinking about it all your life. You've been old for a long time. But that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing.
That's kind of like what I was talking. That's kind of what I was thinking about. Is that, um, I'll look at people sometimes that are, and I can pick out like that they look fresh. They look like babies, and they may be like, 40 or 50 or however old they are, and they look to me like they just, they were just born, and 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 then I know that, but it's weird. It's kind of,
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing about that.
Miss Mary 2020 says, wondering if you feel a certain age in your head / heart. I feel about 25 most of the time, sometimes even younger.
I wake up every morning 17.
Could you grab me a beer, Liz? That's good. I wake up every morning
17.
17.
Yeah, I really do. And then I have to go pee. And then I realize I'm not 17. But yeah, it's attitudinal. There's no doubt about it. And I've always said that being a school teacher and hanging out with 17-year-old kids has kept me young. And now the same thing's going on. I'm hanging out with my 3 children's friends, and they keep me young. I really like being around young people. But I'm not prejudiced against old people. But the young people keep me young.
Right.
And young ideas keep me young. But saying that, some young people are old as shit.
Right.
I mean, they're boring. They're just dead. There's nothing going on. I don't want to be around that. So I don't know that we're even talking about age. We're talking about attitude.
Right.
But, I mean, anybody will say that a young person has less clouds. You know, they're more open to dialogue. They're more open to thinking differently about things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always more fun to be around.
Then again, they can be so passionate that they are tunnel vision on their passions.
Oh yeah,
and
sure. And I leave early.
Right. What is that boring person like? I'm interested in different folks' definitions of boring.
Boring, I think, is pretty simple definition is, you know, the 5th line down the road of what they're going to say. So, you know, so boring's perception. Boring is knowing exactly where they're going to go with it.
Right.
You know, boring can be good. You know, I'll be honest with you, Barack Obama is kind of boring to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what he's going to say.
Right.
But that doesn't mean he's bad. But it just means I'm not going to really, you know, it just means he's not that interesting to me anymore.
Right.
I know where he's going with it. So boring's not necessarily a negative thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You need.
I mean,
You don't necessarily want your doctor to, you know. I like a boring doctor.
exactly. Exactly. I like a boring president. as
Not
long
to
as he
surprise
thinks the
me
same
5
way.
sentences in.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah. That's a good point. Boring can be great.
Comforting.
I mean, you know, but yeah, boring is lack of surprises. So sometimes lack of surprises is super.
Tote says, is death a bad thing? I'm 29 and I normally feel like it's too far off to really worry about. But of course we all wonder, does being 63 make it any clearer?
It's a great, that's the other side of the seminar on aging. It's actually, you have to pay more money to get the seminar on death.
Donate.
Yeah, but just to give you an idea, you know, it's interesting because I think ideally you come to the point as you age where you're ready to die. And I have been with friends that were ready to die. And we know that that's better. Doesn't mean you want to do it because it's scary, but it means it's okay. It's okay. I love, you know, we grew up with that Indian thing where they're going out into battle and they say it's a good day to die. I don't know where we picked that up, but I got it in my culture. And you know, you go out into battle. It's a good day to die. So I do think that as you get older and things deteriorate and things are less, you know, like I look at my parents and all the guys my dad went fishing with are dead. You don't go fishing much anymore.
Right.
You know, so there's a process of that process, but I think that's okay. I mean, I think that's, that's the natural flow of life. You get old and you die, and when you get really old, there's so much dumb shit going on. You're okay with it. What really is unusual, what really doesn't happen that often, even in any culture, is you die when you're young.
Right.
You die when you're not supposed to die. You get murdered. You get in a battle. You get in an Indian war.
Mm-hmm.
You die before you're supposed to. Those things are tragic, but to work through the process, and I don't know. I just think I wrote a poem. I don't know where it is, but I wrote a poem about the idea that I think it was called "Lonesome Dove." It was the idea that one day I want to be able to sit on my porch and say I did that. That's not the poem, but that's what I was trying. The idea that an adventure, that's what those guys were doing. I want that adventure that sends me out there. It's kind of what you guys are doing right now.
For sure.
I want to have that adventure so that someday I can sit on my porch in my rocking chair and just be okay with that.
Right.
And I kind of feel that way about myself, except that I'm not ready to get on the porch because Hillary's still out there.
Right.
You talked about dying ahead of schedule. You're actually talking about physically dying before your time, right?
Correct.
There's a lot to be said about dying, early, or dying in terms of petering out in terms, in your life.
Better to burn out than to fade away.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying, I mean, like, I don't know, like, everything you're talking about is finding the new chapter or the new thing and keeping excited and playing, your tennis and your racquetball and, we're traveling around and getting into adventures and doing all sorts of stuff. But I mean, there's a lot to be said, not even anything about it in, a specific person or specific age, but like just sort of running out of gas mid-trip. You know what I mean? you know what I'm talking about? Like,
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have to have anything to do with age specifically. I know plenty of people back home, all over, but just kind of just gave up, and they sort, whoa, so
Killing
that's
art.
kind of a weird thing too. It's kind of a shame when that happens.
Oh yeah, and that happens to every. But you know what? You go through phases of that too. You got to watch that. I know a lot of young people that have 2 kids and they're working and they come home and they put the kids down and they're too tired to do anything. They can't even watch American Idol and they go to bed and they get up and do it again. And they feel like they've wasted their life. And when they get a breath of fresh air, they get depressed because they aren't doing anything. They're not doing what you guys are doing. They're not out playing tennis or they're not out traveling the world and they get depressed. But that's just really not true. What's really true is they're doing what they ought to be doing. And there's no gratification to it except that, you think you ought to be doing that, but, you don't feel it. You don't get real necessary gratification 2 years later. As a school teacher, I had to realize that a lot of times they didn't appreciate me at the time. You hope they appreciate you later, and maybe they didn't, and maybe you didn't deserve to be appreciated in the first place. But you have to displace all that kind of stuff in that moment. I think what part of what you're talking about, Chad, is gratification, and where you find it and what you're looking for.
Right.
And I think you, Nathan, are a classic example of that, where you have not depended on the numbers of records sold. You've been looking at the passion of what you've been doing and where it's been going. And if you had other parameters, you'd have gotten out of the business
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
That's sort of.
And
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you
I mean,
didn't.
I just really felt passionate about what you were saying about passion and like following the lead of passion, and that it totally falls into the scope of what Hippie Fiasco is.
Right.
You know, I mean, it kind of brings the whole
There's
thing
no doubt about that.
round circle. You know, full circle. We're trying to show everybody by what our passion is. You know, we're doing what we want to be doing, but and not trying to tell anybody that you have to get into a Suburban and carry a bunch of cameras and tether yourself to sockets and, you know, always find interesting things to do, and that, you know, that's maybe what we are choosing to do, but, you know, and so your whole seminar, it totally relates to the exact thing that we're trying to show, is that, you know, everybody has a passion that they have, and if they don't, they should find one and go for it, because that's what fulfills you in your life. And if everybody got into the Suburban, you know, into their Suburban and drove around, then there wouldn't be doctors and there wouldn't be.
There wouldn't be any petroleum on the planet.
Well, that's for sure. I almost said that, but
Ooh, the irony.
but you know, I mean, everybody's got it. Everybody, you know, there's people that want to be accountants, and there are people that want to be police officers, and people that want to be doctors, and go for it and do
Your
it.
ideas mean something.
Yeah,
You know, like, and like honor your ideas.
and be true to yourself. You know.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed is I think we need to honor more about other people's
Right.
deals. That's what I've noticed in my life that I had to realize. An example, what's a good teacher? You know, I was about as flipped out a teacher as you could be. Miss Palmer was about as strict as, you know, the other side of the coin. She was a great teacher. I'm hoping I was a great teacher, but I know she was a great. But we were totally different approaches to the same subject, but you can get there.
Right.
You know, and it's not like none of these people have to follow your lead. That's
Right.
not what we're looking for here.
Right.
We're not. Just find your place. Find, you know, and people that find their place.
Yeah, and you being passionate about it too. Like I had very vivid memories of a lot of my high school teachers, and the ones that were very passionate about what they were teaching.
Exactly.
I retain more information from them, no matter how strict or like I had an
Exactly.
English teacher who absolutely loved
Yeah.
teaching, and I was really good at English, and she let me get away with everything, and she was super sweet and nice, and like I didn't even have to go to senior year English because I read all the books like weeks before they had already, you know, and she was super sweet and nice. And then on the other hand, I had the 7th and 8th grade. It was my 7th and 8th grade AP like science and math teacher, and she was like, she was just Miss Fedak. She was, you know, she sent chills up your spine. She was tough, and she didn't fuck around, and you didn't leave class really liking her at all.
Right.
But I spent a lot of time after school with her because I kind of never really got my work done on time, and she wanted to see my stuff, and it was just her passion, you know, about what she was teaching, and that she had it.
That's exactly
And
what I
however-
thought about Miss Palmer. She had passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And then I had like a history teacher who I didn't learn jack shit from because he didn't give a crap. He didn't give a crap about teaching history to us.
Was
It
he
was
a
all
football
like,
player?
all right, get out your textbooks. God, you know, all you kids, if it like the only thing I really remember about history is that we better shape up because once you get out of high school, it's not going to be like this. And that's what I learned from history.
Oh, that's so funny.
He's like pouring whiskey in his coffee at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh, that guy.
That
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, I didn't know anything about history.
There you
Tony
go.
says that is the story of history. Pluck a Tail Feather says, can you ask him to compare teaching 20 to 30 years ago to now? RE standards, curriculum, freedom, etc. That's a whole nother seminar.
Yeah. But I can pretty quickly say that I think if you're a teacher now, your job's a lot harder. But everybody says that. But somebody today was telling me it's not the teaching that's the problem. It's the red tape. It's the SOLs. It's the hoops they make you go through.
Those came into play before you retired, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I played that game.
So you got to really A/B the two models.
Yeah. Well, you look at it's all. I mean, I could go on about that. There are schools that needed to have SOLs imposed upon them because they weren't doing anything. But for other schools, it was just more red tape.
Right.
It's very similar to that thing you went to tonight with the music thing. You're just making more rules. Is that going to make it better? No. What you fucking do is communicate with people and say, you can't be up on the roof playing loud music at Pompeii at 2 o'clock in the morning because those people over there are trying to sleep.
Right.
That's all all those people were down there. And it was about that.
Right.
That's all. That's what Dave Metz was trying to say. It's not a big issue. It's a personnel issue. But if you go through, the reason I would be there to say you're wrong to do it is don't give the fucking police that little machine and let them walk around and have more power.
Right.
Because all it does is make them look bad. It's not good for the police. I'm defending the police here. They don't need that new law.
I think they
Right.
said that too. That one woman mentioned that they said that.
At least
that
they
the
didn't
chief
want
of
the
police-
power
the
to do
chief
that.
No,
of
they
police
they
was
don't
like,
they don't
"I
need that. They don't
deal
want
with it."
that. They've got enough stuff to do. So just use a little common sense. But that's why I didn't really support it that strongly because it wasn't like I don't think it was portrayed that way.
I've got a question that sort of relates to the last question about
Mhm.
teaching, and how you said it seems to be getting harder. Do you feel like today's youth, or let me rephrase that, maybe is teaching getting harder because today's youth are becoming more complex? Do you feel like they're aging faster or growing up faster because life is becoming more complicated?
More
Partially
information.
maybe due to the internet, due to just how complex the world is. You look back and sorry to do it like this, but I look back at some of the old TV shows, and life is just so much simpler on Happy Days. You know what I mean? Than when you watch.
But the
You know,
world's always
Friends.
been incredibly complicated.
But times weren't, or something. I mean,
During Happy Days, there was.
I know. I mean, maybe that wasn't a good example because it was super crazy with
With the
international relations and stuff. But and the phones,
and race relations, and
right.
I mean,
So okay, are kids growing up faster today because of the internet? And is that making it harder?
That would be, and I'd have to ask you what do you mean by growing up. I think they're becoming more sophisticated with more information, but learning is about you being able to process information and being able to use it, and then recreate it in some way. And just because you're being exposed to more data, that can actually be negative. That doesn't mean you're going to be processing it better. So. I think the problems today deal more sociologically than anything else. That the nuclear family has broken down. There is no nuclear family. A lot of these kids are being handed off to their grandparents, and they don't even know their dad. And that happens more all the time. So there's more freedom for that child, and there's more freedom for that child to get in front of a computer. But that doesn't translate into learning, and there's nobody saying go into your room and learn your math for 2 hours. There's just I think there's a breakdown in the educational system in terms of what happens during the day at school and what happens at night on these kids.
It
And
does,
part of that problem is the computer.
right. I mean, it does seem like what really did happen at a certain point in our culture was that with TV and internet and all that kind of stuff, kids were getting used to receiving a lot more information at a lot different rate of speed. They got in front of their teachers that were speaking at a certain rate of speed and giving information that was really slow to them. And they couldn't focus on it. It drove them crazy. They got antsy, and we as a culture then just sort of uniformly drugged all of our children. That to me is what I think happened.
Well,
It seems that simple.
it's not that simple, but there's definitely that playing into it.
Attention deficit disorder.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
but you know what? That school system that you're describing worked just fine in the 50s and 40s, and
That was before attention deficit disorder.
exactly. So,
That's what I was gonna touch on is that like not everyone learns the same way too, and I think that in schools like that was something there was this formula that had been created earlier on, and they'd stick kids like who were they were problems, they were just the problem kids and kids that like acted out in school and they fit into a certain category, but that person may have ADD or whatever that is, and there's probably a lot more there's a lot more things stimulating people these days. So like to have attention disorder, deficit disorder, is like God. You go out and you see like 14,000 advertisements in your face, like, and you have all these like things that are like pumped into your system, and that grew. So like as society grew, that formula for teaching, didn't hold up, and just and that kind of blows my mind that just there's the one little formula that they have that needs to grow as well, because everything else is growing, and those kids that have ADD or whatever, it's not that they can't learn or they can't pay attention, it's that there's a different way to get the information there, and maybe it doesn't fit into the formula that from however many years ago. Just I don't know. That's what I've seen. My mother's a teacher, and she teaches kids with disabilities, and she's got kids, and they still do it. I mean, she's got kids who have ADD or who are like hyperactive, and with kids who have severe learning disabilities, and that to me just doesn't seem right. Like that, and she's got to figure out how to get all of these kids to retain some form of information, that seems strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know from personal experience that I had a mild form of ADD. Like I couldn't always pay attention to what my teacher was saying, but if I was like drawing while my teacher was talking, I got so much more information. It's just like everyone has their learning curve, and I don't.
Chopsplot says attention deficit disorder at least acknowledges intelligence as in part as a process of executive functioning. Bucketail Feather says even as adults there are plenty of ways to slow down our intake and at least for me keep me saner. Yodi Cat says in the 50s and 60s the system worked great for those it worked for and the rest were just cut loose. Now we try to bring everyone in but are no better at addressing different needs in one big class.
that's a good point.
And Heather B pasted a Facebook link and then wrote, oops. Toad says, I agree with Liz and Nathan. It's a mild disability and the drugs are a drastic response. And now Heather again is posting a YouTube link, but I don't think that's for us.
The ADD thing is a really weird thing for me because I totally agree with what you're saying. It seems, they do that a lot with the new diagnosis or whatever it is, and the quick fix, and here, take these pills, and your child, give these pills to your child, and they'll be normal. And I have to tell you, my whole life, I was that problem fucking child in high school. My GPA was hideous. I was horrible, but I was charting really high on aptitude tests and things like that. And so they didn't know what to do with me. And finally, I think maybe I mellowed out hormonally or whatever. When I got to college, I did really well. But even now, like, Liz has seen me in an IKEA. I'm breaking shit. It like scrambles my sonar,
Yeah.
and I can't focus for the life of me. And I don't know. Do I need Ritalin? I don't think so. But there's definitely something wrong with me.
And then I have to say, the first time I heard the term ADHD, we had a after school at Lehigh program by a psychiatrist, and at one point somebody said, "Well, how do you define ADHD?" And he said, and he was being somewhat facetious, but it was revealing. He said, "It's a situation in which 10 milligrams of Ritalin will control."
Right.
As soon as I heard that, I said, "There's a ball game going on here."
Right.
So, yeah, we all know that about kids and learning and concentration. And there's always been, like the person said, the 50s and 60s is the same thing. We created a model, and we keep perpetuating the model, and we try to tweak it. And then if we can't tweak it, then we give them drugs. But you're right. You're right, Elizabeth. Everybody learns a little differently and everything, and you try to, I took a course in why, there are 7 different ways you learn. People learn visually and auditorily. There's all these different ways, and as a school teacher, you can't do 7 ways in an hour. But here's a good example of where the system fucks up. Is like ADHD, short attention span. So about 10 years ago, we went to block scheduling. Well, guess what block scheduling does? It takes a 48-minute class and extends it to 120 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 120 minutes with you. Well, fucking I'm not that good.
Right.
So I got to show a video. I got to give you your homework, let you do it in class.
What was the reasoning behind
got
it?
a lecture.
What did they think
good
they were
question. Good question. You can have less teachers and save money.
Right.
And you don't have any discipline problems because they're in the classroom and not moving around in the halls. So there's a lot more control. Kids can graduate quicker.
It's weird.
And,
Even how good
none
you
of
are,
it has anything to do with being good education.
No matter how good you are, even if you came totally armed for a 120-minute thing every day, dude, I can't even sit through a movie that's that long.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So now you're taking a fucking kid
you
who's
get,
like,
well,
you know what I mean?
and then let's just top it all off. Instead of having a kid for a whole year who you got to know and you got to understand and you got to understand their sense of humor and your sense of humor, and at the end of May you knew them as people, and sometimes you cared about them a whole lot. No, let's just get rid of them in a semester. Because if they're assholes, you don't have to see them as long.
Right.
But, you're teaching the entire year of chemistry in a half a year.
Right.
I'm sorry, but that's bullshit.
Right.
And don't even talk about reading novels. A whole year of novels reading in one semester?
Right.
And you're saying that's the same thing? No, I'm sorry. It's called Cliff Notes.
Right.
So ended up, I taught Cliff Notes chemistry for the last few years because that's all the SOLs were.
Right.
You only have to get 70%. So I'm going to teach you the low level. I'm not going to aspire you to be great. I'm going to try to get you to pass that fucking test.
Right.
What does SOL stand for?
Standards of learning.
Okay.
And so you get 70% of the questions and you're good to go.
And that also, that sucks for
And it doesn't mean you can pass chemistry in college or anything like that, but it means you're good to go.
It sucks for the kids that are actually passionate about something too, like, you know, being passionate about chemistry or
You don't
whatever
get
subject.
to touch those children.
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
they almost like the
Exactly.
system to go to embrace everybody. They almost cut the people that they were originally built the system for. They kind of get gypped now.
Exactly. Well, that's what I found in teaching
come to
chemistry.
them,
Is that your smarter students were left in the lurch.
Right.
The more passionate students were left in the
It's
lurch.
sort of the same idea about the Pompeii thing. You know, instead of dealing with it easy, they make it harder, and then it fucks the
And instead of dealing
regular
with the
places.
individual problem, it's making a blanket.
A blanket thing, which
Thing.
ends up like snuffing out some really good shit. You know, problematic things, or
Right.
in the school scenario would snuff out somebody's passion for whatever topic you're
Like
learning.
a tail feather, did your question ever come to you? Your new question? Yodi says autism is a similar situation, but by medicating everyone into a one-size-fits-all system, we're taking the creative edge and diverse thinking from our society.
No doubt about it.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
I agree. But that's nothing new. If you think about it, our school system's been doing that for ages.
Right. Sort of what it was all about.
Yeah.
Depending on how you looked at it, but
Yeah.
when we took the land from the Indians and we educated them,
Right.
I mean, how sterile really trying to make a human being at that point, and as opposed to bringing them in to educate us,
Well,
re-educating, I think we called it back then.
Yeah. Well, they learned some shit, but I don't know. It doesn't work for us.
But this seminar is on aging, not on teaching. You're a retired teacher, so and we got off track a little bit with,
Yes, we
with
did.
the education system. That's your old.
Still the aging of the education system.
It's the aging of the education system.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go back anywhere, I mean, ask me a question,
I'm just putting it out. I don't know if I necessarily have a question per se.
or where would
Per
you like?
se.
Nathan was just wrangling a cat that he saw running around. He was like, "Do you want to be in here, or do you want to be in?" Nathan, cat herder.
Yodi Cat says, "Oops, I'm old and a teacher, so both topics interest me."
Good for you, Yoda Cat.
How old are you, Yodi? Should I not ask?
You never ask a woman how old she is.
Plug a tail feather. It was her question was. It was if he thinks that different kinds, like your children, not students, thrive with different parenting, or if most kids will respond well to good parenting, quote unquote.
Well, that goes back to my teaching days. I saw parents who did, and see, I got to the point where the parents were my friends, and my students were their children. And I went through this as many times where I saw parents who did everything to my standards right, and their kids got totally fucked up. And then I saw kids that didn't have much parenting at all. It turned out just fine, and that was a wake-up call for me that as parents, we tend to blame it all on ourselves if things don't turn out well. But that's not what I observed scientifically. That goes back to the kid and their culture and their friends and who influenced them. And so I don't know. I can't make that judgment. And I don't. In other words, I hate to say it, but being a great parent doesn't always produce great kids.
Right.
And vice versa, and I've always felt that way personally. I don't consider myself a great parent. I mean, I left both of them. I left both my marriages. How can I be a great parent? Uh,
But you ended up with 3 wonderful
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
right?
but that's because they have a spirit in them. Now, so maybe you can give me some genetic credit, but not sociological.
Right.
That's interesting because I always sort of argued different than that. I always thought that people, I mean, and it's not necessarily based on scientific data, because I haven't watched a lot of kids grow older, but it just seemed like I always thought when somebody did like a horrible crime and their parents are always like, oh, that they put themselves out there as good parents. I never believed them. I always thought
Yeah.
that they were.
Boy, I've suffered with some of those parents because I've seen it. I've seen it with my own students in life that they just took the wrong roads. They made bad choices. They hung out with bad people that made bad decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and they were followers. And you see them at one point, and they're good kids, and then all of a sudden, they've done something really bad,
Right.
and then they messed themselves up. But that's all hard. That's all hard.
That's a really loaded topic in itself, because I feel that, as you're trying to be a parent, and to teach your kids as a parent would teach their kids, you're also learning from your kids. You're also learning to be a parent.
Sure you are.
So it's this whole circular learning thing the whole entire time. I know just from personal experience, my parents weren't bad parents. I mean, and there are definitely things in our lives, in all our lives, that came up as I was growing up. But and there are things that could have been done differently. But the whole entire time, it was a real revelation for me to realize that, this is hard for them too. That as a kid and yeah, that they were learning it too, and that we had to do it together. That I had things that I could give to them.
Old soul over here talking.
And things
She was 6 years old when she was having these thoughts. She was like, I'm looking at you guys struggling raising me. I understand that, I'm as much the teacher here.
Shut up, Nathan. You. Darn it, I was 12. Okay? I was 12.
Well, I do think about parenting, since we've left aging and the other
Teaching.
and we're going into parenting. I've thought about it a lot, obviously, with these 3 wonderful guys that are out there in the world. Genetically, I have some responsibility, but I think the one thing is that, and not just with them, but watching people raising kids, is how much do you really want them to be like you?
Right.
Or how much do you really want them to be this person? And I was talking about athletics, for instance. I was a damn good athlete. I was a ball player. But, when I had my children, that wasn't really important to me. I mean, I wanted them, I wanted my children to be fishermen. I wanted them to go fishing with me. Not one of my kids goes fishing with me. Does that, am I pissed? No. That's what they choose to be, and, Nathan, I know, went through a phase where he wanted to be an athlete, and then he just, and how was I going to handle that? And I hope he understands that there was a point where we just said, I don't need you to be an athlete. And I didn't need Joe or Dan to be athletes. They ended up, playing sports, and I'm not talking just about sports, I'm talking about everything. Do you have to be, I want them to be better than me in something. I want them to, because that's evolution. I want you to evolve past me. That's another thing. Some parents don't want their kids to be better than them. So there's all that shit going on. But I think it's all judgment there of saying, I'm here. I'm here and it's unconditional and I love you.
Right.
And if you do that, then most of the other shit will work out.
Mhm.
And, you know, I got to go down to Little League and I see the kids that weren't very good at baseball want their kids to be so good at baseball. I ran a Little League program. You know, it's just crazy. But I was so good at it, I didn't need anybody else. You know, you don't have to be like me. Just find out what you want to be and be that. And I think there's some, you know, that was like a backdoor wisdom thing. I wasn't consciously doing that. That's just the way I was. I didn't really worry about it that much.
I think it's definitely really. I mean, you tapped into me wanting to be in sports, and definitely, I mean,
And we tried.
you being my dad.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty powerful stuff. Like, cause you were a great athlete, and it's not like I felt like, I don't know. I mean, I guess on some level, I felt like I don't remember feeling like that way, like in a bad way. Like it was
Well,
almost.
that
It was like you're the king, I'm the prince, and I need to, if I'm going to wear the crown someday, I better like be good at football. And I mean, I wonder, like, because definitely your love of music was like the next thing I went to.
Yeah, but that was you.
I know,
guess
I know
what-
it was me, but it was also like.
That's.
I mean, would I at the same time, I don't know if I would be a songwriter if you weren't my father.
Doesn't it
Maybe
all-
I would be. I'd like to think that I would be, but on another hand, maybe I wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either.
Isn't this all about passion?
This goes back to the conversation
You know?
we were kind of having the other night, just you and I, about the garden and how, as a little kid, you want to be into what you want to be into. You're like into what your parents are doing. Like you want to be by your parents. You know, that's what you want.
Oh yeah, that's the normal buy-in,
And
and that can be a real problem. You know, if that's not if that's not your nature, and that
right,
from my perspective as a parent, it's how much do you push that.
right.
You know,
Right.
how much do you allow flexibility in that? And I see a lot of parents that aren't flexible in that. And
They'll thank me
tho-
later.
And yeah, and those kids will end up being fucked up on some level, invariably, and they'll rebel,
Right.
and they'll go out drinking, smoking pot, and knocking over mailboxes. They'll do something to say I'm not that.
Hmm.
You know.
That's
Right.
the man that the boy that I was the guy that I was dating. Not
Old
Not
soul.
a man, not a boy.
Yeah,
He was a guy.
Yeah, he was a guy. Yeah, the old soul spoke first.
the guy that I was dating not too long ago, about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, very perfect, quote unquote, parents, raised him right, right, whatever that is. And the person that you see, that like his life that he lives, like out and about and at music festivals and stuff, his folks have no idea that person even exists. No idea. They know this
Sure.
one thing, and he works for his father in his father's business. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I don't know if they ever encouraged him to do anything else. They made this little like protege, and taught him to live in a certain way. And God, I've seen him on so many levels, and one thing I can say is that he's in a lot of pain, and he's because he's so far from what he feels inside. He's just doing this thing, and he's so far from that. And that's a good example of parents being perfect, and raising, did everything right, beautiful house, pool, everything's good, kids are taken care of, this child is just like hurting inside. And he's
I
still,
think that's
and
very
he's still a
common.
child.
Totally common.
It's so common. I taught at a boarding school. The first question you got to ask is, how can you send your kid away?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are valid reasons and there are great reasons, but my God, I wouldn't let my kids get away from me. I got to have them near me. I got to know who they are. I couldn't do that. So consequently, I realized that those boarding school kids have issues.
I would feel like it's like almost like an abandonment thing.
Surely. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Do you
But there might be good reasons for it. I'm not judging them.
there's a fine line, I think, and I think you have played it well as a parent. I mean, there's such that extreme parent. The baseball coach who is just absolutely like overbearing on their child, or the pageant mother. These typical
Sure.
things that you see, and those are the kids. Or even parents that are old time Hollywood people, and then they have their kids, and all of a sudden uh Willis, or like any of those old people who are on the shows, and then they end up being like crackheads and robbing banks, and because they were forced into something and not allowed to be themselves. But there's a fine line. Maybe your children didn't take the exact path that you wanted to take, in terms of sports in your specific example. But knowing your three boys, the they have their own direction, and they're doing their own thing. And what they did was, and what they took from you was your passion towards whatever, in your instance, sports. And of course, that they did pick that up a little bit. I mean, Baker ball's huge, and that's that's going to be an Olympic sport soon. But they saw the fire in your eye for something, and knew that there was something that made you happy, and then they decided, or learned, that if they could find what lights their own fire, then they can also be happy. Nathan with his songwriting specifically,
Well, and there's a lot of luck involved with that, and just yeah. I mean, I don't want to. Like, here's an example with my youngest son, Joe. He, as a parent, how do you approach? He had some talent as a quarterback. He had strength and quickness and a good eye, and so the question was, do we program Joe to be a quarterback? And he could have been a major college quarterback. And you're a father, and you're thinking about that.
Right.
Or
Because they're young and dumb and can make bad decisions.
well, yeah, I'm in charge. I
Right.
can control what's going on here. So instead of him playing baseball and basketball, no, Joe, you lift weights and you throw passes and you specialize. So what's right? And I guarantee you, Archie Manning knew what he was doing with his boys, and they're both playing the pros. Who's to say Archie Manning's wrong? I'm not.
Right.
Who's to say I'm right? I'm not. So you make decisions, and it just depends on your philosophy. I mean, I could have said, Joe, you could really be great at this. You need to give up all those other things. But the moment I did that, then it would have been me. And I didn't choose to be me just because I'm not that person.
Well, now you're profound.
Well, I don't want. It sounds like I'm saying I'm really cool or something.
No, that was just what you.
But
you
it's
said it
just
by
not
accident.
me to say you should do that.
Right.
And maybe if I was a stronger parent or a better parent, I would have done that, and he would be making a lot of money, and you wouldn't have to worry about being poor. He could be paying for
Right.
all of our houses.
I was just saying.
We
the
could
other
have a
day,
swimming
a lot
pool.
of my integrity actually comes from cowardice.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of my great parenting comes from not being able to make a fucking decision.
Right.
You know, it's not like I'm profound or
See,
anything.
I could talk Joe
just-
into making that commitment, but I don't want to make that commitment
Well,
with him.
I
I can't be that father again tomorrow.
We should have had a meeting. We should have had a meeting and said, let's sacrifice Joe for our good. Daniel, you read Greek.
Yeah, I didn't get
Nathan,
it.
you play songs. Joe, we're going to make you fit into this mold. So instead, Joe plays 3 sports,
Invented Baker Ball.
invented Baker Ball.
Instead,
Plays the
Joe
flute.
and Daniel and his friends all invented Baker Ball.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
And that's what happened. And it's because of the lack of parental guidance on my part.
Put the fire in the parent's eye.
But you know,
Well, see, because you didn't hone them in on one sport.
I know.
They made a sport that was all sports.
Exactly.
what's great about things like that, though, is how progressive, and our culture is. Baker ball could be like the next freaking frisbee golf.
Absolutely.
You
There's
know,
no
like
reason
that-
why it couldn't.
There are frisbee people are really, really into frisbee golf,
Right.
and
All over.
and that wasn't. Somebody had to make that up.
Right.
You're exactly
So,
right.
Ideas. You got a bunch of idea people.
Bakerball.com.
Are we taking an intermission?
Yes.
Or is it okay? Intermission. Ding ding a ding ding.
I was thinking about like.
I don't know about
somebody
intermission. I'm
coming
like
out to
through.
you, Nathan, and being like, hey, I want to know more about basketball.
Right.
Bakerball.com. Bakerball.com, everybody. Speaking of .com, Hippie Fiasco Rides again. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Ooh, that mic is hot. That mic is hot. Oh, it's like getting late.
Getting late.
Hi, I'm Liz Bunny. It's getting late.
Let me just take this off.
I've not been hanging out with Chad too long. This is not my real voice. Shit, it's so
You need
hard.
a haircut.
My real voice is stuffed with Coca-Cola.
Dude,
Oh wait, can I give Digit my hair? Don't try this at home, folks.
I can see you're almost lined up. It looks really good. on your camera, right?
Liz says I'm not allowed to get my hair cut until 4th of July, until Independence Day. I get to cut my hair. She wants to see if I can turn into a hippie.
Oh, you know what we can do? We can set up a haircut at the porch. Dunkley will do it for us.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. I'll call Dunkley.
We'll do like a 30-minute long When a Woman Cuts Your Hair improv jam.
Yeah. Dude, she'll cut your hair, put feathers in it, give you some highlights. It'll be sick.
I was just saying, it's a funny memory of Fred.
Oh, good point. I'll tell
Chad
Dad that one.
cigarette
Yeah,
after
it's beautiful.
Dunkley giving Milo a haircut. He's just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Well, there's all the dead hair
There's
around.
all the hair all over the ground, and Milo was just like passed out, like in the living room.
Yeah.
Everyone was so concerned about the image of Big Light Camp that year.
Yeah.
The image of Big Light Camp?
I
Oh,
don't know. It was.
Yeah, and 3 weeks later, every member of Big Light's getting their haircut by my hair
I don't know
cutter
what
who
to
made
talk
the
about.
hair mess in the image of the living room. The picture living room that was tainted by scattered hair, discarded. But we were also goddamn good looking that year with the haircuts and stuff.
Really, really good looking.
Dad's breaking some records for the week. It's the best viewership we've had in a while.
Nice.
Good work.
Doesn't say a lot for porch picking these days. That was some hot porch picking.
Dude, what about
Guys were on
what about the
fire.
nose picking section?
The what?
The nose picking session last night.
Nose picking session. Next highest after this.
Right.
Saw your butt.
I saw your butt.
So it's been a great,
Anybody pick
wonderful,
photos?
eventful day. It was grandmom's birthday, and we went to. She made us spaghetti on her birthday. It was great. What a way to celebrate your birthday! Make spaghetti for other people. No, but it was really awesome. And like, there's a lot of good timing that's gone on. A lot of true the great serendipitous is rearing its head over the skyline of Stanton, Virginia, going, oh! The great serendipitous is hovering over this town. It's hoisting beams, not of light, but of dark brown. We have been in town for the Project Grows kickoff, the garden that we're gonna, I think, raise money for next week with a local musician, completely virtual fiasco that will only be attended by creepers. I wonder if there's a way we can ban lurkers from even seeing what's going on. Like, put frosty glass up for them. So I think we're gonna do. So we were in town for the for the launch of the community garden here in Stanton. We were in town tonight for the city council was meeting to vote on whether or not to lower the noise decibel limit for after 11, and it was amazing. It was pretty controversial here in town, and a lot of musicians and people organized to
Security one.
a lot of people. Sorry, I got distracted. It's all right. I was trying to figure out what we were talking about while I was talking at the same time. My brain just farted. But the city council met tonight, and they were going to vote on whether or not to lower the decibel limit 15 decibels after 11 o'clock. And a lot of musicians attended to speak on behalf of and it was funny because there was like a few times that the city council referred to us, or the people that were out there, we were just reporting, as the no rules people. What was it? The no rules group or something like that. The no rules crowd.
No rules crowd.
The no rules crowd. There's like, we
Who
got
said that?
it was like more than once the people that were there to speak
Everybody who was up there.
were referred to as the no rules crowd. Like
Not everybody up there said that.
No,
Tim Harrigan didn't say
it was
that. I was
interesting.
just saying, I want to specifically. Dave
Well, we
Mann.
can actually watch the hippie fiasco highlight, and we'll highlight it.
At least three of the people up there said no rules crowd.
I like to
It was
hear that.
definitely a used thing, and you
It-
could tell they had talked about it.
And it could be true that there's something like there have been petitions that have been started and people that organized, and maybe somebody from that side of the argument actually referred to themselves as that. We don't know that that's not true, that they didn't get emails to the city council from the no rules
Woman was
crowd.
Talking about her email.
Right.
I got two.
But the
emails.
amazing thing from my point of view, although I find all that extremely fascinating, but it's just serendipity that Hippie Fiasco is in town while all this stuff is happening. We were at the city council meeting. We were at the Project Grows. We were at the Percy's All-Star Night, or the Mockingbird All-Star Night. Forgive me. And Grandmom's birthday. This is ridiculous. This is just serendipity all over the place. It's a really beautiful thing. And now we've actually gotten to spend some awesome time with my dad, which I knew was going to happen, and I hope it happens more than just this once. And we're just this is it.
No way.
But I know that he's loved. I know that he's loved having us around. He'll be glad when we're gone, and he's glad that we're here, and he's cool like that. And I know he's digging what we're doing, and he's actually inspiring what we're doing, supporting what we're doing, making what we're doing possible. I mean, I know that you felt welcome and comfortable. Chad's got his own room. Liz has her own room. We are
First
I mean, it
half
actually
hour
took a couple of days, really. I mean, to like really, but at the same time, it's like it's paradise here. Once you settle in, Chad's got a great little spot that he's been doing getting late with down there. You're gonna miss those, got those 45s behind you and the wood basement and his own
Yeah, I'll
room.
do a
He can
45.
smoke in his room if he wants. He can do whatever he knows. He can do whatever he wants to do,
I'll do it.
and that's a beautiful thing. Because it's hard to be places where
Today
you
when
can't do what you want to
Next
do.
time you're going downstairs,
And
there's a
that's
box.
just a fact of life.
That's the box.
So Dad's back in his chair. I'm going to turn the camera back to him. The intermission's over. But so is the programming. So is the preconceptions. Uh,
Just sit right there.
he actually, what's he going to get?
Box.
Oh,
I'm gonna love it though.
I hope. I'm not going to guess.
Check these big boys out. Just pull a few out.
Why don't you grab a handful?
Well, he can look at them and pass them to me, or we'll talk about them.
Dad, thank you for doing this for our show.
Well,
Our ratings
Our ratings
are up. There's one person was on here that says this is the best yet, as far as someone said this is good hippie fiascoing. Pluck a Tail Feather says it's the best yet, says me.
oh, thank you.
And then Yodi Cat says, I wanted to read you this. For every successful Manning, there are thousands to put their all into it and didn't succeed. If you impose so much focus on the kid and it doesn't work out, you both lose. High
I
stakes.
almost said that same
High
thing.
stakes.
I said how many quarterbacks that had the talent, and the parent had that
I
discussion
saw that
with the
over
kid,
and over.
and then they snapped their fucking femur, and that was everything they had attached
Or
their
they
persona to.
Or they just put so much into trying to be that when they realize they can't be that, they fold up everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I've often related as an artist to the athlete analogy, and ways were different and ways were the same. I think artists and athletes both. The reason people love them is because they display grace. They are any human form displaying of grace is an inspiring thing, riddled with stories and triumph and defeat and everything. But can you display grace or not? Gale Sayers running a kickoff back is the same thing as Paul Simon, writing a new song or something. I mean, it's like it's just grace.
Well, I agree, and I always thought that I think like the acting community doesn't really respect the athletic community on that level.
It's a mistake.
It's a
'Cause
mistake
it's
for
the
them
same.
to think it is the same, and the difference is the athlete has to do it in the moment. And I'm being a little critical here, but the actor gets to practice.
Right. Unless the purists would say, oh, the theater is what it's all about. And, most actors, at least in the old day, you had to cut your teeth in a theater, and that was always what it was all about. The film was exactly what you say. Like, it's like, oh, you can just...
Yeah, but also, even in the play, you rehearse, but you have to play it a certain way. In athletics, you have to react to the moment, and
No theater person would agree with that.
Well,
Every performance is like an athletic event, and you're on your game or you're off your game.
I would
Period.
not. I would not argue.
There's
with
the
that.
zone, the pocket, all the metaphors apply.
Yeah.
You're in that. You're in motion. You're either in grace or not.
I'm not going to argue that.
And it's the same, not even in that. I mean, there's in anything. I mean, whether you're a salesman or a
Absolutely, teacher.
yeah, whatever you're doing, you're on or you're not.
You're exactly
Right.
right.
Even
Right.
if especially if you're like a poker player.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like anything. We all know that. I mean, even if you're not doing something publicly, even if you're just, camera off, you're sitting writing a song. You could be so on, so off. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of the computer, totally have this great idea, and I can't write shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? so many times, like 9 out of 10. You know, I just sit there and like, I'm like, all right, Facebook, all right, you know, you know, you have to be on to get it.
Right.
These are great.
Mama said the Shirelles. I mean, goodness gracious, I'd love to hear that right
Does your record player work?
now. That one right in there?
Yeah.
It does.
Let me put it on.
But you'll have to figure it out.
God.
Mama Said by the Shirelles. I can't wait to hear that.
Who's the Dave Clark Five? My uncle's name is Dave Clark. I wonder if he was-
Dave
I
Clark
wonder if he was
5.
one of the 5.
Oh, I have a classic story. 1964, going to I wanted to be the Dave Clark 5. I got me a white turtleneck and a blue blazer, because that's what they wore when they played Glad All Over on Ed Sullivan. I wanted to be the Dave Clark 5. They were the coolest guys in the world.
I wanted to be Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Well, we're the same.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same zone.
Same thing.
Exactly the
Same
same thing. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Yeah. Glad all over.
I wanted to be that guy who does the Getting Late program on the hippiefiasco.com.
Oh,
That guy's
God,
fucking
he's so
awesome.
sexy.
He's so awesome.
He exudes raw masculine sex. It's just it's pretty.
No, I was gonna go with more that he's super funny.
Oh,
But sure.
well,
I mean, I do find him attractive.
yeah,
but
I'm just trying to support your ego, my
When I
friend.
lay down in bed, I sometimes wish that he were there with me. Yeah.
I wouldn't say I've gone that far with him.
I mean,
but-
sometimes like as stepping out of the shower, I think I see him in the mirror there for a second. Kind of scares me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Speaking of that, Chubby Checker.
I found my thrill. Is that Chubby?
No,
Is
no,
that Fats? No.
that's Fats.
Chubby Checker was Twist?
Chubby Checker was all twisted, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found my third.
Every
Speaking of
song was
Happy
a twist
Days,
song.
So which one of these works? Neither?
What do you mean?
I'm on my second record player.
The brown one at the bottom, the big record player.
The wood brown one works?
Yeah.
So Liz straight ganked my lighter. That's not typical.
What's that?
Who, me?
No, Liz. Well, both of you, but this particular instance.
I found it.
Found my inspiration.
I think we're getting ready to hear Mama Said by the Shirelles.
That feels about right.
Days like this, my mama said.
Can they hear it?
Oh, yeah.
They can hear everything.
All right, we'll
Oh,
play
Yoda
it.
Cat says, "Oh my God, I met the Dave Clark Five in a hotel in Florida in 1968."
Oh my God.
And then she says, "Yes, I'm that old."
And now you're having a seminar with
When
them.
I asked her how old she was earlier, she wrote, "How old do you want me to be?"
How old are you? Do you know the Dave Clark 5? Do you remember when Popeye was black and white and when Mickey Mouse was original? And do you know the Dave Part 5?
So these are records that I chose to take dancing. These are all dancing stuff. There's some great ones here.
What do you want to hear after this?
Oh yeah, Claudine Clark. That's we'll play a game. See if anybody know who I'm. I'll give the song or the artist. This time, she was a one-hit artist. Claudine Clark. Well, she had a couple, but Claudine Clark.
What song do y'all think is about to play? I'm going to wait for a second to play it. Did you give it to me right side up?
Yes, I believe so. Yes,
Okay.
Claudine Clark.
Claudine Clark. What
Probably
song
about-
are we about to
Probably
play?
about 62 or 63.
Now you have an incredible record collection that I have always said, because it's true. I discovered my love of music when I discovered your 45s collection, and I can still, just like I can feel Tammy Lamb's cheek still on my lips from the first girl I ever kissed. I can feel the needle going down on those 45s and the world that it unleashed and unlocked. But why do you have such an awesome record collection?
There's a little bit of accident to that. A couple accidents actually, but for me, you fixate on things. Everybody fixates on it, and I love the feel of the 45s. I love the idea of the. I mean, they were all little friends of mine. I was in my room alone a lot, and they just became my personal friends.
Are a lot of these from when?
Well, see, some of them are a lot earlier than when I was collecting them, and that's what I was going to get to. Is actually when I came back from college and lived in Stanton, Bill Duke and I, a friend of mine, we started going to we started collecting them together. And of course, the classic story is that I had some of my best 45s, and when you were about 11, I don't know how old you were, but we were going to a party, so I put my best ones out and told you to put them in the car, and you put them on top of the car, and we were driving down the road, and they all fell off, and they all broke.
I remember. I know exactly that we went. The webcast actually went out that stretch of road to go fishing the other day. And there were just 45s for about 100 yards all over this country road.
It was
some of them not broken.
No, I'm going to disagree with you. In my recollection, every single record was destroyed.
Wow.
I thought it was really unique how that happened. How you'd think a few of them would make it, but they just all hit the road so hard that they all just shattered. And I'll never forget that. Go back to parenting. Was that I was just sitting on the side of the road crying like a baby, and I knew how much he was in pain, but I was in so much more pain about the loss that I couldn't, buck up. I couldn't say, "It's okay, son. It was just an accident." I couldn't do that. I just bawled, and I know that affected you. But we got over it.
Right.
But the beauty of that is that Bill Duke, my buddy, like 10 years later, I came home from teaching school one day, and there were huge boxes of 45s. And he just wrote me a note and said, "I'm tired of moving them from house to house. You can have them." And it was amazing.
I always wondered, because some of the records have S.W. Moore on them, and some of them have Duke.
but there was a mix over there, but he gave me back basically everything I lost.
Wow.
So I still have the same collection, but Bill Duke, in some beauty in his world, just gave them to me.
Right.
But it's like what goes around comes around. But that was a classic story. But I collected them. It's not like these are mine that I had. A lot of them are, and I know them like they're old friends. But a lot of them, we would go to yard sales, and that was our hobby for years. We would just go collect them together.
Right.
And and then we'd trade. And it was just a fun thing Bill Duke and I did.
Right.
But at some point, he gave me all of his old records.
I always sort of wondered who W.H. Duke was.
That's Bill Duke. He's a great guy. Love Bill Duke. But I don't know him well. I only know about 2 or 3 chapters.
So what was it about the 45s that you love so much?
I think a lot of it's texture. Just, you know what they are. They have an identity, and it's one song, and, you put them up there, and there's 6 songs, and so you buy albums tend to be not as good because the albums have like 1 or 2 songs you want to hear, and then 4 or 5 songs you have to hear,
Right.
and so you end up either just listening to songs you don't. But if you put the 45s on, you pick one, you get 6 songs you want to hear,
Right.
and they click down. It was a beautiful thing, but that was the culture I grew up in.
So no one's guessed.
So
no one has a single
well,
guess.
go put
for
it on.
Claudine Clark.
Right.
I'm going to put on a
They're-
song by Claudine Clark.
They're too young.
They're too young.
That's all that says. These are a lot of old songs, so we're giving a little history lesson.
Wait, what? Buck up. Life's not like this. You better get your shit together. That's history, right?
Right.
Buck up. Well, this is a great song. I'm thinking 62, maybe 61. Somebody can Google it and tell me. It's a great party song.
Hey, Yoda Cat just got her party lights. Totes says party lights.
All right.
Wait, did y'all just guess or y'all heard it? And Dania RB says, I have happy memories of Bill Duke. He used to color with me when I was little.
Who?
Dania RB.
I don't know who that
And Toad says, I Googled it 10 minutes ago.
is. Good Toad. Well, here's one I bet they can get. Some more reach. I'll give them some more recent stuff. Everybody can't be as old as Yoda Cat now.
It's a long boy. Or do you want him to guess the person or the...
Put the song on and ask them if they know who did it.
Can I show him the title?
No,
No?
no, they'll Google. Just put it on.
Okay.
I mean, the song, it's obvious, the song, once you put it on. So guess who did this one?
I grew up to a remake of this song by The Clash.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yep.
I'm
It
never
was
around
definitely
for- I wonder where I am when the remix
I
is
sing
out.
it sometimes, like if I'm gonna actually every now and again I'm rowdy at Marino's and we'll break that one out. Dwayne Huff's right on that one.
Why not?
Breaking rocks in the hot sun.
Wait a minute. You're giving it
I
away.
fought the law and
Hey,
the law won.
Hey, you're already giving it away.
Well, that's okay.
No, let the music speak. You don't have to dominate everything.
No, it's good.
It is good.
I needed money 'cause I had none. That was like a huge punk song.
Well, we can all
In the like late 70s, 80s, that was like punk, that was like a punk anthem, and it was a anthem. It was punk. Rock and roll was so punk. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
And that's why like you and the Dave Clark Five is exactly like Chad and Anthony from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's just that each generation had to kick it up a notch. So by the time I got to Chad, you had to have your shirt off, your hair down to your ass, the tightest fucking pants you could possibly get, and pull it off.
I can't. Yeah, I get it.
Fun the law.
I agree.
Billy the Kid.
So pumped, Billy the Kid.
Great song.
Now, who is this? The original version, where it all began. Don't Google it. Don't Google it.
I grew up to this.
Who is it?
You know who it is?
I can't tell you who the artist that
He was his only hit.
You already guessed this. Gee, I thought it was a Grateful Dead song. Oh, Pixie Hill's here. Bud and I are enjoying this. Things are really slow here tonight. Who is Pixie Hill? It's her porn name.
Well, I'll play her one. Yeah, I got it.
I want to welcome Bud and Pixie Hill to the show. It's a beautiful night here in Stanton, Virginia. We did a seminar on aging, and now we're just drinking wine and eating cookies. Doing back in time.
If Buddy's on there, he ought to get some of it.
So who is this? Pixie says, yes, it's me. Bud wants to know what you're drinking.
White Russian.
White Russian. So who is this, everybody? No guesses yet. Ain't nobody got it. Who is it?
Bobby Fuller 4. Bobby
One-hit wonders?
Bobby didn't last long.
You had a lot of one-hit
Yeah.
wonders back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Not to call your day the day.
Well,
I don't want you to feel old or
the
anything.
day.
But in rock and roll, Jesus.
All right, here's a Marino song.
Here's a Marino song.
Played all the night, all the time right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can all dance to this. Vicky, you and Buddy can dance to this one.
We suggest, yeah, if you're there together with your loved one, don't be afraid to ask one of how do you say it? One or the other to
To
dance.
dance. You can ask somebody to dance.
It's
I see a pretty girl across the room I might be dancing with here before too long.
That's what you call tongue tied.
Hey, buddy, it breaks all our hearts that you're not painting. I am speaking for all of our hearts, which is a little awkward. We were talking about it, and we hope that that's. I mean, if it's really what you're for your next move, if that's what it's all about, that's cool. But it always did wonders for me to think of you painting. Who are we listening to here?
The translation under the boardwalk, down by the sea. On a blanket with my baby.
Not the Coasters. There you go, Drifters. Not a one-hit wonder.
Not at all.
Why do you think you had so many one-hit wonders back then? They don't have those anymore, really. I mean, I guess we do.
I think it had to do with the entertainment industry. you got these different labels. You know, people put one out, and then the one song, the radio stations were playing, the radio stations controlled it, so one could take off.
But they were always undeniable.
Yeah,
They were great songs.
yeah, but that didn't mean you had a production company behind you that could do it again.
Right.
That's where Motown came in.
And 9 out of 10 times, it wasn't the writer performing the song. So it wasn't like an entity, a creative. Like it was, in that sense, a hit could be manufactured.
Well, you get the Motown and even the Drifters stacks, there was a production thing going on. But within that umbrella like Motown, there were still a lot of one hits in there. And I don't know why.
Right.
All right, here's one. Younger people. This is an anti-drug song. Nobody got it. You know how
It was a what?
it was an anti-drug song?
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like when you're walking through Food Line and you hear that one took over the line and everybody's just walking by happy and not understanding they're talking about smoking pot. It's like, well, this was an anti-drug song, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But listen,
the kicks just keep getting harder to find.
listen to
When
it.
you
Listen
wake
to
up, it's too late.
it. Yeah. He likes to give it away before he puts it on. You notice it?
I'm bragging. I'm bragging.
He's letting that cat out of the bag as quick as he can.
Cats shouldn't be in bags.
True.
Yeah, especially my cat.
They should be out there killing art. That's some edgy shit right there.
It's a hell of a song.
Getting harder to find. Who are we listening to here? Pixie Hill says Puff the Magic Dragon was an anti-drug song. Right?
Yeah, you're trying. I don't know if that's right, but you're trying to be right, son. Girl, you better get straight. That's all I got to say.
Figure it out.
Don't even come back. Don't even come back over here. Go you straight. That's what he's saying. You're a little too fucked up for me. I'm sorry.
Right.
You don't even get a mass. That was classic.
I don't think I ever knew the words to that song. I thought they were always saying the chicks.
Chicks
Oh,
just
chicks.
keep getting harder to find.
But there also the message is a lot of people think it's like kicks get kicks, but they're actually saying the kicks are ruining you.
Right.
It's really that's what I meant by anti-drug song. It's
Right.
not. It's not really. Oh my God, the Dave Clark Five. Here it is. This is the one that made me change my. There it is. Woohoo!
Change your whole wardrobe.
I changed my wardrobe for these guys because I wanted to be cooler. Than
Oh, feel it. Sorry.
Yeah, why don't you just do it with it before you do it? Probably be better for everybody. You could.
I'll just come sing it whispered in your ear because you're the only one I really want to impress.
You don't have to impress me.
I know.
You know these second almost as well as others. Probably better because your mind's younger.
Right. Such rhythm.
Oh yeah, he was just pounding those drums.
With these big smiles.
Yeah. No, that's a Ringo
Yeah,
song.
that was Ringo.
Yeah. That was just sappy.
A lot of the music though from that your time there.
Well, Dave Clark was the drummer.
Yeah. Yeah, right. The original Ben Folds 5. Ben Folds, what does he play? Ben Folds? Yeah. You know that band? They had to think of the Dave Clark 5 and the Ben Folds 5.
You away? What's that? Right. Oh, it's great. Yeah, you have secondary memories.
This is a funny thing. I think that if I had music to wake me up every morning, that I would wake up. Like, you put music on at 6 a.m. or whenever you woke up, I would wake up. But other than that, I just keep sleeping.
I'll try that tomorrow morning.
I'll hear it. I may go through a couple songs and I'll be like, I want to get up.
Wait a
Get
minute.
up and hang out with that music.
All right, I'm going to do that to you tomorrow morning. Let's see if you wake up.
We should maybe save. Well, we got.
Yeah, what you should say.
I'll save just in case.
Save what?
On the subject of one-hit wonders, do you have Winchester Cathedral? I had the album.